the best place to begin taking a look at the Cadian Ball is to remember when and where we are. We're in Louisiana after the Civil War, and we can start to go ahead and start to dive into looking at the social structure that we see in this little short story. We can start at the top with the Labieri family, right? There's Alcée and then Clarice. Remember, we're in Louisiana. Don't know if you've ever been to Louisiana, been to that part of the country. Interesting fact about Louisiana, it was a part of different countries before it became American in the Louisiana Purchase. It was briefly owned by the Spanish and the French, and there's lots of different nationalities that are mixed up in there, and the idea of descendants is really important. That's something that we finished in the previous lecture that we were taking a look at. So when we look at the top of the social pyramid, we could say, with this family is Creole. So what the Creoles are, generally regarded as white, and what they're descendants of are primarily French. And they're the oldest group of people living here in this area of Louisiana. And of course, this family, they are the landowners. And of course, with any agrarian type of economy, those people who own the land, right? These are the people who make the most money. And as we start to move down the social pyramid, the social caste system, this starts to get less and less as we move down. And that's just true with any type of agrarian economy. So, of course, the gentry here, Alcée and Clarice, they're also educated. And a unique characteristic of especially Alcée is that he's able to move throughout society, up and down. There's that interesting passage there about when Alcée goes into the Cadian Ball, is that he attracts attention not only from the women, but also the men, right? So what this lets us know is that the people who are underneath him in society, those men admire him for the role that he plays. So an interesting and easy connection, that you could make to this in your own life would be when you see someone who's of the upper class in your community, you kind of naturally look at that person, right? Whether that person is of the same sex or not, and you kind of admire that person, right? Because of their standing in society. Then, as we start to move down, what we find underneath the Creole is Cadians. Today, we don't use this term, we use the term Cajun. This is where this word came from. Cajun, that picks up here the Cajun. It kind of got squished together. So anyways, what happens with the Cadians is they have more mixed blood. And this could be, say for example, could be freed slave or slave blood, or as we see in some of the different characters, we see some Spanish blood. And then inside of this, right, this idea of mixing, we see the character of Calixta. And Calixta's mother was Cuban. Even though Calixta had never been to Cuba, she was born here in Louisiana, but because her mother had been Cuban, she's lower, right, inside of the Cadian class structure than Bobbin, right, Bobby. So he's Cajun, he's not a landowner, but instead he works the land, right, so we're moving down. He's higher than Calixta because he doesn't have all of the different mixed blood that she does. And then inside, right, so inside of this, what we can look at is some of the other characters, female characters, such as Phrone and Ozenia, right? Now what's interesting, there's that reference to the fight that these women had got in outside of the church after Mass one morning. And then people kind of shrugged it off because they realized that with the mixed blood that Calixta has, that's just how those people are going to act. Yeah, sure, it's bad, but they just kind of go, well, that's just where she comes from. That's just what she is. Right? So we're able to take a look at how society is stratified. And then down at the very bottom, who do we see? The servant class of the landowners, and this is Bruce, a former slave. So here we get to see everything. Now, it's important to remember that at each level, right, of society, there's rules. And we can see some of these rules that are listed out. So this is from the story. Anyone who is white may go to a Cadian ball, but he must pay for his lemonade, his coffee, and chicken gumbo. So in other words, if you're at the top, right, then guess what you get to do? You get to come down and mix in the class below you. But can the Cadians come up into Creole society and go to those parties? No. But when you come down, what do you have to do? You have to pay, right? But if you're part of that society, you don't, because that's your peer group, we could say. And he must behave himself like a Cadian. So what's good for the upper class, they get to go to these parties where there's not others from their society. So they get to go to these parties, and what do they get to do? They get to dance with the most beautiful woman there, Calixta. They get to behave, they get to court, they get to misbehave, and nobody here is going to blink an eye about it, because that's just what happens here. But you don't want someone from your society, your status, coming to that party and seeing you misbehave with those in the class below you. So this lecture, we're about to time out here, so we'll pick up in the next one.